Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And whether you are presenting live or watching the recording, we are so pleased to have you with us. My name is Erin French, and I'm an instructional designer in the Teaching and Learning Center. Today, we're wrapping up our three-part TLC seminar series entitled Fantastic Fits, Pairing EdTech with Impactful Learning Activities. In today's presentation, Tech Savvy Approaches to Case Studies, I'll be helping you find your fit with educational technology when teaching with case studies, whether your classroom is in person, synchronous online, or asynchronous. If you would like to follow along with my slides, a link to them is being pasted in the chat right now. And if you're watching the recording, a link to the slides is available in the YouTube description below. We know that sometimes educational technology can be overwhelming or intimidating. So one of the goals of this TLC seminar series is to meet you where you are. This approach aligns with the task technology fit model and the technology acceptance model. The task technology fit model proposes that a person will utilize a specific technology tool only if the requirements of the task they are working on align with the tool's functionality. Therefore, if you have a task in mind, such as teaching with case studies, and you can see that a particular educational technology tool would help you to accomplish the task, you will be more likely to use that tool because of the clear fit between the task and the tool. The technology acceptance model emphasizes the perceived ease of use and the perceived usefulness of a technology, which in combination influence a person's attitude, their intention, and ultimately their actual use of the technology. In other words, you're more likely to accept a technology tool and use it when you could see it would be easy and useful. Both of these theories highlight the need to identify the right technology tools for the task. You can read more about these theories in the article that we're putting in the chat. And for those of you watching the recording, all links pasted in the live chat are available in the slide deck linked in the YouTube description below. Case studies are commonly used in health science education because they help students to develop clinical reading skills, apply their knowledge in realistic situations, enhance their collaboration and communication skills, and refine their critical thinking skills. In other words, they help students to move beyond simply remembering or understanding information. They allow students to apply what they have learned and analyze data to make decisions that will ultimately benefit the health of patients or community members. Case studies are one way to prepare ATSU students for the real world, while providing a way for students to build the skills inherent in ATSU's 5 core professional attributes. Three common challenges with case studies are limited realism, reliance on verbal discussion, and uneven participation and passive engagement. In your own teaching context, which of these challenges creates the biggest barrier for you? For those of you here live with me today, please feel free to put your answer in the chat or come off mute. For those of you watching the recording, please feel free to pause the video for a few moments to consider this question on your own. Let's see, we've got Lana in the chat saying uneven participation and passive engagement. Yes, definitely. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later to help you with some strategies for it. Does anybody else feel the same way, or would limited realism or reliance on verbal discussion be a big barrier? Yeah, Tabitha is agreeing with uneven participation. And so Kim and Kelly mentions limited realism. So while I'm sorry that all of you are facing these challenges, I hope that the rest of the presentation here will help you to take a look at what addressing these challenges looks like in practice with some fantastic fits between case studies and educational technology tools that you already have access to at ATSU. The first example I'm going to share with you today is for teaching with case studies in person using VisualDx. VisualDx is an educational technology tool that provides visual support for clinical decision making. VisualDx utilizes an evidence-based approach for developing diagnoses of dermatological conditions, as well as those that present visually, but it can be used to support making diagnoses of a wide range of conditions, including those that are caused by medication side effects. At the core of the software is an extensive library of more than 50,000 peer-reviewed images that illustrate over 1,300 diagnoses. VisualDx is also a powerful health equity tool because it provides diverse image representation, including skin color, age, and sites throughout the body. Over 25% of all images in the database illustrate how conditions can present on types 4, 5, and 6 of the Fitzpatrick scale. This tool is available through a web browser and an app, making it ideal for use in didactic and clinical settings. At ATSU, it's available through the A.T. Still Memorial Library. One common challenge with case studies is limited realism. It can be hard to turn a paragraph and perhaps a photo or two into a realistic patient encounter. Traditional case studies are often limited in their scope and variability to provide experience with classic presentations or textbook symptoms. Another challenge is that case studies are often designed with a fixed case progression where there's less opportunity for iterative clinical reasoning. Utilizing VisualDx as part of teaching with case studies can help you bring case studies alive. VisualDx provides high-quality images and examples of patient variability, and it will give your students the opportunity to interpret real visuals from actual patients with a variety of skin tones. VisualDx is designed for point-of-care use, and it's used by hundreds of hospitals and clinics, so in an educational setting, it can simulate giving real-time diagnostic support to a patient who may or may not be presenting typically. It's flexible, and the case study characteristics can be expanded to cover additional patient information like medications, travel history, or negative findings. With VisualDx, case studies are transformed into dynamic, iterative cases that enhance critical thinking and clinical reasoning skills. This is a screenshot of the VisualDx homepage, which is the launch point for learning activities within the software. At the top is the diagnosis search, and when you start typing even one letter, VisualDx will start returning diagnoses with the term or terms you type in. What's great for teaching with case studies is build a differential, and I'll show you a demo of this feature in a moment. If you've created a VisualDx account like I have, also on this page you'll be able to access your recent activity of diagnosis searches and built differentials. For instance, if I wanted to return to the differential I built last week to revise the patient's travel history and see if that changes the differential, I could do that without needing to set up the entire case again. VisualDx also allows you to save diagnoses and earn CME credits, and we're pasting a link in the chat about that right now. From this page, you can also download VisualDx's free mobile app. VisualDx has produced several videos to help you and your students learn how to use the software on the web and on the app. Please see the links in the chat or in the YouTube description below to the VisualDx web tutorials and VisualDx mobile tutorials playlists. One way you might integrate VisualDx into the in-person classroom is to present a case study you have already developed. Then, by using Think, Pair, Share, students can compare their work, discuss how they arrived at a differential diagnosis, and share out with the class. To facilitate this, students would work individually on their own devices and build a differential diagnosis using VisualDx. They would enter the information provided in your case study as shown in the demo video. Depending on the complexity of the case, about 5 or 7 minutes should be enough time. Following this individual work, students would pair up and discuss for another 5 minutes what they did in VisualDx and what clinical reasoning they utilized to arrive at their differential diagnosis. Finally, a larger class discussion could situate this case study within the SOAP note framework, and you could ask various pairs to report out about the differential diagnosis they decided on, along with details of their clinical reasoning. Using VisualDx for teaching with case studies allows students to practice developing their clinical reasoning skills in real time with the support of an evidence-based tool. Because of the extensive image library, students will also strengthen their diagnostic observation skills and build confidence in diagnosing across diverse patient presentations. In addition, VisualDx can help students to develop solutions collaboratively with their peers. There are additional fantastic fits for VisualDx. In the synchronous online classroom, you could add breakout rooms and continue to use Think, Pair, Share. You might also consider using a jigsaw share out, and we're adding a link in the chat with more information about that technique. In the asynchronous classroom, you could pair VisualDx with a discussion board or with a reflection assignment. Resources to help you learn more about VisualDx are being pasted in the chat. My second example focuses on case studies for synchronous online classrooms using Zoom Whiteboard. Much like a whiteboard hanging in a classroom can be used for live collaboration in class, Zoom Whiteboard is a digital workspace built into Zoom where ideas can be discussed in real time. Participants can interact in multiple ways and customize a whiteboard by using the pen and shape tools, drawing lines, inserting text boxes, and adding sticky notes. These elements can be easily resized, and fonts and colors can be updated too. In addition, users can also leave comments. Multiple people can work on the same board simultaneously, and I've mocked up a couple of examples. For instance, you may have a portion of a case study where you want students to identify various stakeholders and their level of involvement. Another use might be for students to construct a SOAP node as you work through a case study. Zoom Whiteboard is not limited to class time only. You can save work completed in class and share for after-class review, or so students can continue working asynchronously. Another common challenge with case studies is that students are often expressing their thoughts only verbally. Because of this, it can be hard to track reasoning, compare approaches across groups, or see how their thinking is evolving. In addition, verbal-only discussions can also be difficult for students who feel less comfortable volunteering to speak in class. With a Zoom whiteboard, students can express their thoughts verbally and in writing. This helps to make thinking and learning visible. Students can document their decision-making process as they collaborate with their peers to respond to a case study. Zoom Whiteboard also provides support for students who want to participate, but they feel more comfortable doing so in writing. The key to utilizing Zoom Whiteboard when teaching with case studies is the dozens of templates available for all kinds of applications, from brainstorming to diagramming to project planning. The example I'm going to share with you today is for a synchronous online speech-language pathology class that focuses on a case study about ethics and professionalism. To create this mock-up, I started with this Zoom Whiteboard template named Lean Coffee, which is shown here. Then I made some modifications for a health sciences case study discussion utilizing the tools built into Zoom Whiteboard that I mentioned before. Here's a closer look at the changes I made. First, I've added step-by-step instructions for students to follow and a short case study about an elementary school student whose classroom teacher wants information about his diagnosed communication disorder. Second, students are asked to consider 3 questions related to the case study. Here's an example of one of those questions where they're asked to identify the ethical and professional issues in the case study, and then use a sticky note to add their answers to the whiteboard along with their name. In the synchronous online classroom, one way you might utilize Zoom Whiteboard for case studies is with breakout rooms. All students could be assigned to breakout rooms for a certain amount of time, such as 10 or 15 minutes. And when they come back to the main room, each group would be asked to report out so all students can learn from their peers. Alternatively, you can use this as a whole group exercise in the main Zoom room. Using Zoom Whiteboard for teaching with case studies allows students to visualize complex problems and processes, which contributes to more organized reasoning when analyzing a case. In addition, students can develop solutions collaboratively with their peers. Zoom Whiteboard also allows for nonverbal participation, and as an added bonus, it can help students to prepare notes for a more meaningful in-class discussion. Just like VisualDx can be utilized in multiple modalities, Zoom Whiteboard can be too. In an asynchronous course, students could add sticky notes to answer questions throughout the module. Although we don't think of going online much in the in-person classroom, a Zoom whiteboard could be used for small group work, and then you could project each group's whiteboard for an all-class discussion. Resources to help you learn more about Zoom Whiteboard are being pasted in the chat. My third example is utilizing Harmonize for case studies in asynchronous courses. Harmonize is an educational technology tool focused on enhancing classroom collaboration and student engagement. It includes features such as discussion boards, peer review, social annotation, individual assignments, and polling. Julie presented about it in the first session of this series as a fantastic fit for readings. Harmonize is also a fantastic fit for case studies with its discussion board features. It's designed to support meaningful interactions among students and between instructors and students with inclusive and dynamic participation options. At ATSU, this tool is available as an integration with Canvas. A third common case study challenge is that there can be uneven participation and limited engagement. We're all familiar with the prompt of make your post and 2 comments by Sunday night. Interaction among students is delayed or rushed when there's only one due date. Discussions can also be fragmented and hard to follow if the interface doesn't clearly define what's an original post and what's a comment or a response. In addition, especially in asynchronous courses, students can feel isolated from their peers and their faculty member. With Harmonize, you can set up customizable date milestones for initial posts and comments. For instance, you might choose to have initial posts due on Thursday and responses due on Sunday. The structure of Harmonize ensures that it's easy to find posts and comments because they're clearly labeled and organized on the discussion board as well as within posts. Harmonize offers several features to help create a sense of classroom community, like tagging others, reacting to posts with positivity, and providing the choice to post with text, video, or audio. One way to structure a case study discussion in Harmonize is for all students to respond to the same case study. I've mocked up a case study about global public health and UN Sustainable Development Goals. Students are asked to make an initial post that addresses certain points, and there are length requirements included. Then, by a second deadline, students must respond to 2 peers by addressing another set of points. These prompts are designed to support students in writing both substantive initial posts that integrate what they're learning for the week, but also substantive response posts that enhance student engagement with both course materials and with each other. I'm sure we've all participated in a discussion board where everything was due at the same time, and when you make your initial post early, you wind up waiting around for others to post so you can respond. Harmonize allows you to set up milestones for when an initial post is due and then when comments or response posts are due. Here, I'm modeling a Thursday night deadline for an initial post and a Sunday night deadline for responses. This helps to structure the case study and supports most students in making their initial post by Thursday night, so responses can take place prior to the final Sunday night deadline. The milestones turn green and show progress as a student moves through the discussion board requirements. Next, I'll take you on a brief tour of what student and faculty interactions look like on harmonized discussion boards. And I am just going to make sure that this is in the best resolution. Whoops. There we go. Here is the case study discussion board assignment that you saw on the previous slide. We'll scroll down and you'll see that I've mocked up initial posts by 2 students. Let's focus on the initial post made by the student Teaching and Learning Center, who likes to go by TLC. Before clicking on it, we can see that there's already been some activity. There's 4 total comments, including 3 by peers and 1 by the teacher. Let's click in to see more about this discussion. TLC has elected to make their initial post with text, and I have mocked up 3 student responses so you can see the 3 ways in which posts can be made on harmonized discussion boards. In the first response, I also wrote a traditional text post. On all of these, I have tagged TLC, which will notify TLC and help encourage them to return to the discussion board to continue interacting. Below that, I have recorded a short video post, and my third comment is audio only. For audio and video responses, Harmonize adds captions and transcripts. They can be toggled on or off using the CC button, as well as the Show and Hide transcript button. I've also reacted to each of these posts, and they all have positive sentiments like "this is helpful" or "great idea." Finally, I've mocked up a faculty response, and Harmonize denotes when a faculty member responds or makes a post on the discussion board by putting a small purple apple next to their names. As a faculty member teaching with case studies, I encourage you to post video or audio responses to your students to help establish instructor presence and help to build a sense of classroom community. Another way to set this up is with multiple case studies. If you have a larger class, it might be easier to have students choose a case study or assign them to a particular case study like I'm showing here on the slide. The same prompting structure and multiple due date structure can be used regardless of the number of case studies. Using harmonized discussion boards for teaching with case studies allows students to engage with complex topics in an organized way. Students can express their ideas in traditional text posts, or if they feel more comfortable, they can also post with video or audio. In addition, students can develop solutions collaboratively with their peers. Harmonize also ensures that students can participate in an inclusive classroom community. Harmonize can also be used in a synchronous online classroom or in person. It's great for additional practice opportunities, encouraging students to reflect, or providing a space to debrief from a class meeting. I hope today's presentation has helped you to learn more about how to enhance case studies in your classroom with educational technology. I encourage you to consider utilizing VisualDx, Zoom Whiteboard, or Harmonize the next time you teach a case study. What ideas are you taking away from today's presentation, or in what ways are you already using these EdTech tools to teach with case studies? For those of you here live, please feel free to put your answer in the chat or come off mute. And for those of you watching the recording, again, please feel free to pause the video for a few moments to consider these questions on your own. And I've noticed that Lana has chimed in the chat a couple times saying that you've used VisualDx and Harmonize, and you learned about Harmonize when you took one of our TLC courses. So we definitely appreciate you mentioning that. Does anyone else have ideas on what they're taking away or examples of how you
Well,
already use these
yeah,
tools?
I'd like to share something. Thank you,
Of
Erin
course.
and Julie and the whole TLC team for all this helpful stuff you always put together. I appreciate it. Um, so yes, I actually only used Harmonize as an initiation exposure type of thing. I used it for the syllabus assignment, which is usually, at least in our program, it is required for the students to review the syllabus in detail and make sure all the expectations, the learning objectives, the schedule, everything is reviewed by them ahead of time, which historically consistently never happened, right? At least by a majority. So I thought, hey, the Harmonize could make it a little simpler for them to do so. And that was exactly correct. It made it way better. The students asked questions on Harmonize. They highlighted, they asked questions. Um, it's when I get the students, they've been in the program about at least 6 months, and they had taken many courses, and they asked questions that to me reflected that I had never looked at a syllabus before in this program. So I was very happy they participated, they engaged. They were surprised by some things that were available to them, or, oh, yes, I didn't know that was expected of me. And they made excellent conclusions after reading it. I thought it was extremely helpful. Most of the students did not find any difficulty using it. I also encouraged them before class. I uploaded, Harmonize offers a practice, I don't know what to call it. There's a little assignment that is how to use it, essentially, and they get to go through it. You guys had even a better one in your course. to be fair. But that was the only one available to me. I used it quickly. It helped. So it limited the amount of time I needed to use to answer their questions on how to use it per se. I only had one student out of 94 have difficulty and needed my assistance directly. Outside of that, 93 of them, different ages, different backgrounds, no problem. They used it very well, and I think it accomplished the goal it meant to do. The only problem I have with using any of these wonderful tools is the fact that I'm the only one using them. So that has defeated my purpose greatly. And again, when I receive the students at that time of year, they are so set in a certain way, in a certain structure, that really evidently has been not at the best service to their learning process. So um, when I initiate those, they are perceived with a lot of difficulty. And I understand they haven't seen it before. And hey, you're already teaching us a complicated topic because my classes cover neuro and MSK. Yes, they're complex, which is why these tools would be extra helpful. However, they just are baffled. They're like, oh, you want us to learn something else on top of the material? Of course, my nonlinear thinkers in the class, which is usually around 20%, they are over the moon with these tools because it has built-in reminders, as you know, for certain folks that need it. It has all the compatibility inclusive feature for those with dyslexia. They never necessarily disclose these issues. They suffer silently a lot of the time, and they found it extremely helpful. So having said that, I still actually provided the alternative, also something I took away from your courses, an alternative way of completing assignments. So they didn't feel obligated to learn a new tool. It's there for you, but if you like to do it with uploading your document like you used to do before or entering the answer directly in a text box, by all means, that was also available. And lo and behold, actually, despite their resistance to this specific module, the Harmonize, nobody ended up choosing the other way. They all went for Harmonize. So, I mean, that's a testament, a big testament for this. Granted, again, my use of it was limited. I couldn't actually apply it to the lessons that meant more in my mind because the resistance some of them had about doing things differently was communicated to leadership in the program, and leadership agreed with them that they shouldn't be introduced to something new. So my hands are tied as far as how much I can employ of these tools. And that saddens me, honestly, because I think they could be of great benefit, especially the courses I teach are simulation based and mostly case based. So this would be wonderful. The other VisualDx one, that one I actually used. I was teaching a dermatology ClinMed, few lectures in that and co-directing it. How beautiful would that have been in that one? So I actually built it in an attempt to prepare for it. That's how I learned how to use it very well. Again, it wasn't approved for use in the course. So I ended up offering it as an option, elective option to students who wanted to use it. I learned from them that a few of them are using it in their clinical year, and they report back that it's been most helpful. So I really wish for help from the TLC in a way. I don't know what your capacity or purview in this would be, but how do we bridge this with other faculty members, department leadership? How do we get them on board? I know we have different acceptance of change, different acceptance level yet. So the early adopters, the middle ground, and then the immediate adopters, which I think that's where I fall. And I understand that the whole gamut is necessary for any meaningful change to take place. But I mean, I have been, for lack of any different word, unsuccessful in connecting with the rest of my department peers and cohort, connecting with them and at least getting them to just see those things. I didn't even push for using it. I think just exposure. What I know after really nagging about it, or again, there's no other description than that, I nagged about it at every meeting. So our department director, Dr. Halsey, she's actually one for progressive work, right? And implementing new methodologies. So, but she realizes also, not being able to push it on people. So what she said she would be willing to do is have the TLC bring their knowledge directly to maybe special sessions to meet with our faculty. I have seen one example of that right so far, and I can tell you from an insider point of view, it did not work. Did not work. Most people were not engaged, not interested, never even followed up on it or wanted to do anything with it. So I am calling you, please, for not necessarily having an answer now, but if you could brainstorm together with me, if I can give you some like whatever input from my experiences, I would love for this to be used from the beginning of the course as a program so that when the students trickle down, even if it's just exposure in the beginning, just show them the tool so that when they come down to a class that's going to use it meaningfully, they're not shocked. That's thank you for listening. But yeah, I wanted to speak up on that.
Of course, and thank you so much for sharing that you have used two of these tools already and that you've found success with them. I hope I speak for the my TLC colleagues that we'd be happy to brainstorm about this, happy to meet with you in a consultation so that we can explore this further. And we just really appreciate your attendance here today and hopefully raising awareness that these educational technology tools are available might increase interest among other faculty. So thank you again for your comments. Just in the interest of time, I do want to move us along here just to finish up to say that we have TLC resources that are going to be shared in the chat here, just how you can look at our website, contact us via email, or request a consultation. And so we're going to open it up for any other questions. Please feel free to use the chat or come off mute. I do want to go back through the chat here. There's been a lot of activity and make sure that I haven't missed anybody's questions that came in while I was presenting. I want to say that Alan had a question. Yeah. So, among the harmonized components, are there any that you suggest are the easiest to learn and apply? So, personally, I've only had exposure to the discussion board and to the social annotation. And that's what was featured in Julie's presentation. That was the first one in this series. For TLC courses, we have not used the others, but I invite my colleagues, if you have used any of those other components, please let Alan know if you found them to be easy to use. So Julie, Quincy, and Emily, you have not used any of the others?
No, sorry, just the same ones that you're familiar with.
Yeah, that's okay. It looks like Julie's also providing some support in the chat. Thank you, Julie. Let's see. Yes, we have access to all three of these tools at ATSU, just in various places. VisualDx is through the library, and Zoom Whiteboard is built right into Zoom, and then Harmonize is integrated with Canvas. And let's see. I think that might be all of our questions. Did anyone have another question for the chat, or did you want to come off
Well,
mute?
no, real quick. How about how you guys in your beginning of the courses and even now you put together these very user friendly, easy to understand, quick presentations, or necessarily quick video on how to use something or where to find it in Canvas. Um, could we possibly maybe have them all in one place? That way, as a course director or instructor, we can use them in our courses to like introduce the students to it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, it's up to Quincy ultimately as our director, but I think that that's something I think that that's something that we could discuss.
Great. Thank you for considering.
Yep, thank you. So just before we go today, I want to encourage you to check out the recordings for all three sessions in this series on our YouTube channel, and Julie is pasting the link to that in the chat right now.